No, you don't. You don't, because you know that even if you feel that person's not as good as you, you feel that they're going to play ahead of you because they bought them in for money. So they have to justify to the chairman why they brought that person in. So even if you feel you're better than them, that person is most likely going to get a chance at some point. But it's up to you as a person that's already there to make sure that you outperform them every single time. But on the same hand, sometimes it is good because it keeps you on your toes. If you're at a team where you know you're playing every week, that's when it can be a problem. That's when you can become stale as a player. So it's always good to have that challenge, that person waiting just behind you to take your position.
The VAR Show. The one place for your weekly football update.
So hello, very warm welcome to the VAR Show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today we are going to go and have interviews, and we have Mr. Leon Cort with us today. He has played for the likes of Guyana national team, Stoke City and Hull City, among a host of other clubs. So without wasting much time, I would like to first thank Leon for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to the show. And I would like to begin by asking you, how are you and what are you doing these days?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm enjoying retirement. It's been a long career, ups and downs, of course. But no, I'm enjoying my life after retirement. I'm now a scout agent working for Stella. They're agents that I used to employ, and I now work for the company. I work in France, so I'm enjoying it. Getting players to join the company, helping them progress through their careers now.
Of course, definitely. And as you said, you are still involved in football in various capacities. But what is the thing that you miss the most about playing?
The games. I miss the games. The adrenaline, the competitive fight throughout the game to win. There's sides of the game I don't miss, but the main thing, the answer to your question is the games. The games are the part, and the crowd, that's the part I miss.
So again, I would like to follow up on that. Is it like, do you miss only the winning or do you miss the losing also?
I suppose it depends how you lose. I mean, if you lose but you learn something very vital throughout a game, especially in your younger years, that can be beneficial for you. But you know, nobody likes to lose, of course. It's hurtful, it's painful, it can ruin your whole weekend. But on the same hand, you must always take a positive out of a negative sometimes.
Definitely. And talking of your career, you had a long, successful career. How do you look back at it now? Joyful. I mean, I didn't expect when I was 18, 19, I didn't expect to reach the level I did and play against the players I played against and play with the players that I played with. So there's a lot of positives for me, and that was mainly due down to hard work, because I wasn't the most technical player or anything like that. I got through on dedication and hard work to try and get to the level I got to. So of course, you had a very successful career where you played for a lot of clubs, and of course you'll have fond memories with each club, your own personal memories with each club that you played for, each team you played for. But where did you personally enjoy your time the most?
It's a hard one, because it's a good question, because when I was at Southend at 20, 22, 21, that's when I felt more free to express myself, and you really enjoy your football more then, because there's no pressure as such. But in terms of successful times and competitive nature, I would have to say it was either my time at Crystal Palace or Stoke City. The reason why at Crystal Palace, because that was the first time I've been bought for money from Hull City, so that was quite a lot of pressure. And to go with the players that I was playing with, I had to up my game and really perform, which I did, because I got Player of the Year that year. And the same with Stoke, we had to get promotion to the Premier League, and we did do that. So that was another side of the game, which was very challenging. But enjoyment-wise, I would probably have to say Southend.
Okay, and you said, you were paid money for when you moved to your club.
So, generally, like since you've played for so many teams, when you move from one team to another, do the defenders already present in the club give you cold shoulder because you're going there to take your place, or are they very open?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a very good question, because when you walk into a new club, everyone welcomes you. They shake your hand, welcome. They laugh and they joke with you. But deep down in your head, they don't want you there. They expect the defenders, other defenders, they don't want you there because you're coming to obviously take their place. But it's a business. It's dog eat dog football. It's very competitive. You still talk to them. They're your friends. They're your colleagues. But on the same hand, you do know that they don't want you around. You know how it works. That's how it goes.
Definitely. And like on a personal note, did you like it when your club bought another defender?
Say that again. Sorry.
On a personal note, did you like it when your club brought in another defender?
No, you don't. You don't, because you know that even if you feel that person's not as good as you, you feel that they're going to play ahead of you because they bought them in for money. So they have to justify to the chairman why they brought that person in. So even if you feel you're better than them, that person is most likely going to get a chance at some point. But it's up to you as a person that's already there to make sure that you outperform them every single time. But on the same hand, sometimes it is good because it keeps you on your toes. If you're at a team where you're playing every week, that's when it can be a problem. That's when you can become stale as a player. So it's always good to have that challenge, that person waiting just behind you to take your position.
Definitely. And like I'll talk on another topic in the international stage. You were born in England, but you went to represent Guyana at the national stage. How did that happen?
My close friend Faisal Khan was close to the Guyana Federation, and they asked me a few years ago when I was at Stoke to play. But the problem with Guyana, I mean, the facilities and etc. It wasn't really a good standard, and I had to concentrate on my domestic football at the time because I was at Stoke City, and I wanted to remain in the team. So I didn't want to be travelling across to South America back and forth to England, which can be a lot of jet lag. So I put it off for a while, and as my career was winding down at Charlton, I said, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll try. And it was an enjoyable experience. It was enjoyable. It was nice to play World Cup qualifier games at any level. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I did.
And of course, like, could you shed some light as to how it was with Guyana back then? Now at least they have qualified for the Gold Cup and they have improved a lot. So how was it back then?
It was at the early stages. It was quite difficult because we didn't have the players that they have now. With Neil Dans, etc. Those players coming in. We didn't have those players. It was really just myself and my brother and a guy called Chris Nurse. And the rest of the players were more domestic players with not much experience. But now they've obviously gotten to more of a bigger world stage due to the fact that myself and my brother helped propel them to get to that level. And other players eventually saw and said, I would like to give this a try as well. So it's nice to play a part in the beginning to help them get to the level they are now. But it's good, and they can only grow. More players are seeing it. More players are realising they've got Guyanese heritage, and hopefully it will help them grow even bigger.
Definitely. And moving back to the club, or maybe just generally, you have played for some iconic managers throughout your career, where some have been, labelled as defensive in their games, and one such coach was Tony Pulis. You played under him. How was it playing like for him?
It can be very hard, very, very challenging playing for someone like Tony Pulis. He's very, very, very old school in his mentality. You have to be a man. You have to be a real man. You can't be, You can't be very sensitive to him because he needs you to do what he wants you to do, and it needs to be his way. And if it's not his way, you'll be out the door. It's as simple as that with him. But I must say, I enjoyed it. It's probably my best goal scorer in time was with Stoke because he's a master at set pieces and crosses and free kicks, and I've got a lot of goals under him. I can understand why a lot of people don't like his style. I can understand it because it is very direct and very straightforward, and not much goes into it. It's very simple.
and that's why I think he may struggle in the modern day unless he tries to bring different attributes into his managing style, because a lot of players can't do that way anymore.
So, like you said, like like he might not struggle in the present game, and he has been criticized for quite a while by many sections of media and fans. Do you think it's justified, because he does not get to work with the high end? He then with the transfer budget and everything. Do you think it's justified for others to criticize him with what he has and what he's working with?
I think they've gone a bit over the top with the criticism towards his managing style, but I just believe that it's okay when it's working for you. When you're winning games and you're playing that way, it's fine. But when the problems creep in, it starts to get really bad very quickly. When you're training that same way, you're doing the same long ball styles in training, and you're going into games and you're getting beat. That's when the problems start. If you're playing decent football and you're trying to win games and you're doing well, but you're losing, not fans can accept it, but they can understand that there's an ethos, there's an understanding here. But when you just keep doing the same thing week in, week out, and it's not working, and you don't change it, that's when the problems occur. In terms of a budget, he had a decent budget at Stoke. Like, he had a decent budget. He had, good players there, good players that can win games for you. Ricardo Fullers, Tunchai Sanleys, he got in some, obviously, good Johnson, all those good strikers, good players. But you're making them do jobs which they don't really want to do. They don't really want to drop into certain holes. They want to score goals. So that's the problem you had. I mean, I know when you brought in Michael Owen as well, Michael Owen couldn't believe what he was seeing because he's used to playing a certain way. It's the same with Jermaine Pennant. He was used to playing a certain way, attacking football, getting down, putting crosses in. But when a manager's asking you to do a lot of defensive responsibility, it's going to be a problem for those kind of players. So he did have the players to do it. He did have a budget, a bigger budget than a lot of teams coming up from the Championship. And that was the time to really stamp his authority on it. But he kept the same philosophy, and that's where I think the downfall was.
Definitely, and talking of Stoke City, they have been struggling for quite a while now. What do you think of them? What is going wrong behind? Because you would know more than what a normal fan would know. What do you think? Do you think they have what it takes to come up maybe in the next 2 years, or is it a long time we'll see them in the Championship?
Well, it all depends what they do in the summer. I mean, I think if we're honest, the fans over the last 3-4 years have been very spoiled with what they've seen at Stoke. Nobody expected them to get into the Premier League. Nobody expected them to survive as long as they did in the Premier League. And all of a sudden, it becomes very expectant for you to stay there. I think what they need to do is start again. They need to get the philosophy of Stoke back. Stoke has an identity which they need to rebuild again. I remember when I was at Crystal Palace and I played against Stoke. I hated playing against Stoke because they had an identity. You were going to Stoke and you knew it was going to be a tough game, a very, very tough game. And they need to get that mentality back. What I see lately, I see a lot of people that can't handle the pressure. You can blame the managers as much as you like, Nathan Jones, whoever. You can blame as much as you like. You're the player going on the pitch. You're the one that has to have the self-pride and the ability to do things right. So you can put all the blame at Nathan Jones's door as much as you like. You can't just look at him. What they went through last year under him, losing all those games, is not acceptable for Stoke. With the amount of money and the players that are at Stoke, it's not acceptable. No way in any stretch of imagination. So they need to get philosophy back, the identity of being a hard place to go to. And the results will eventually come because they've got a good fan base, they've got a good chairman. It's up to them. It's up to the players to get it right.
Definitely. And talking of the coaches and everything, if you had to pick out, of course it'll be difficult, but if you had to pick out one coach who had the most influence in your career, who would that be?
I'd have to say Peter Taylor. It really started with him. When I just left Southend, I went to Hull. That's when my career really started to really propel. He knew what I was. I knew what I was. And he knew how to get the best out of me. And he helped me at a young age to get to the level I've got to and get teams like Crystal Palace and Hull to spend money on me and Burnley. So that's how it went. So I'd have to say Peter Taylor.
Definitely. And talking of your another club, Burnley, and of late they have been in better fortunes than maybe middle Stoke City in comparison. So do you think like the same cycle is being repeated, like what Stoke City went through, where their fans are being spoiled of maybe finishing in the top half of the table, and the expectations have gone high up? Do you think something like that, like they may go down because Swandash is performing extremely good, like with the budget and everything he has, what he has done with the team? What do you think of Burnley? Like, what should be their aim going forward?
The first thing for me, was to make sure Sean Dyche stays. I mean, their budget is very, very, very small, a much smaller budget than Stoke. But what they're doing is that they are very, very solid at the back, and they also get forward. They also try and get goals. So that's the difference with Burnley as well. It's a bit of, he hasn't got his players, his strikers dropping in defending too much because he needs to get goals to survive. So what he's been doing is separating and a good tactical nous of how to defend at one time, but we also want to attack, whether it be counter-attacking football. It's a good style. It's very productive. All the players have bought into it, so it's working really well for them. But they have to be very careful. It's important that they do strengthen, and at some point they do have to spend money, because when I was at Burnley, they tried to survive in the Premier League without really spending any proper money. We were training at the stadium, but we had to get changed. We had to get changed at the stadium and drive down to a training ground. The training ground wasn't at the same place where we got changed. It was really a mess. We had one pitch we were training on in the Premier League. We had one pitch. By Christmas, there was no grass. It was just mud. So we didn't have the facilities to really survive in the Premier League. But now they've actually invested some money, got the training ground set up, and put money into it for the team to have a chance of surviving.
Definitely. And like now, you are involved with the agency representation, like you said. So do you have any aspirations to become a coach?
No, I get asked this question quite a lot, and I say no because I don't like the uncertainty of the game. I don't like the fact that I could have a job for 6 months and I've got a family to support. I don't like the idea of I lose 5 games and I could be sacked, and then I get another job, and then I lose another 5 games and I could be sacked, and then I can't get another job. It's so much uncertainty in the game to live that way, and I don't feel comfortable with it. If you're a big name like a Jose Mourinho, or you'll always get jobs, but there's plenty of managers, ex-players that I know now have had a couple of jobs and they'll never get a job again because they've had 2 bad runs. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult industry. And I also know a lot of players that have taken all their badges, done their badges for years, can't get a job. There's only so many coaching roles, and there's so many players taking their badges, but they can't get a job. So, and the thing with football, it's about who you know. Because if there's a manager in a certain position, he will only bring you in if he knows you, because they can't trust people because they think people are after their jobs. So it's a very small business, but it's a big business at the same time.
Definitely. And like in terms of moving back to your playing career and being a defender, which opponent was the toughest you ever faced?
I would, movement-wise and cleverness, I would have to say Carlos Tevez. He was so clever. The way he you just couldn't mark him. He used to drop off into little holes in front of you where you couldn't come out of position and mark him. He was very, very, very clever with that. Strength-wise and awkwardness, I would have to say Adebayor. He was extremely, extremely strong. Unsurprisingly, but he was very quick as well. I was quite surprised by his pace. So yeah, Adebayor.
Definitely. And like since you are involved in relegation with Burnley, you would have faced a lot of games where you would have lost, maybe closely or even heavily. How do you as a player, put that behind and focus on the next game? Because that is something that will linger on your mind because you would have had bad games. How do you focus on the next game and put that behind? Does it come with experience?
It's very tough. It's horrible. As a matter of fact, it's horrible because you have to remember you're a team that are tipped for relegation from the beginning of the season. You haven't invested heavily. You're playing against the best players in the world. So when you lose games very heavily 1 week to the next, it's hard to get your mind around it. especially when you know you're at a club when the manager's struggling himself. The manager's not showing much confidence at the time. Brian Laws wasn't showing much confidence. He didn't really know what to do. And I was probably in one of the hardest positions because the amount of defending we had to do in games just to get a point was a lot compared to what a lot of teams do. So we had to put our lives on the line week in, week out just to get a point. So a striker might nick a goal and feel good about himself, but when you're conceding goals week in, week out, your confidence starts to get low, and the losing mentality becomes the normal to you after a while. And when you get into that is the worst position you can be in, to be in a losing mentality. And I feel that's what we got into at Burnley. We were losing games, and we'd eventually just brush it off like it was the norm. And as soon as that starts happening, you have problems.
Definitely, I'll stay with Burnley and that relegation campaign, and of course, to the outside world, you never give up, or you portray that to the fans that you never give up. But inside the dressing room, of course, you would have that talk, or you all realize that we are going down. When does that feeling creep in? Does it happen in January? Do you know that we are going to go down or something?
When you're losing games and you can't stop losing games, it creeps in very early. You know you have problems. But then what happens is your manager needs to step up and try and keep the dressing room together. Because what will happen is when you're losing games, everyone's fit for their own position, their own careers, their own contracts. They start to blame each other. Oh, it's your fault for this. Oh, he's not performing. Nobody really starts looking at themselves. They're always trying to point the finger at somebody else. And that's when the dressing room starts to become divided. And then you have little cliques where certain players are sitting over there, certain players are sitting over there, and certain players are sitting. It becomes all separated. You're not a unit. But when you're winning, everyone's together. It's fun and games. Everyone's enjoying it. But when you're losing, everyone becomes your enemy because everyone's feared for their own position. So, like I say, it's up to the manager to keep the dressing room together and get it right and not blame a single player. But you have to just get the unit right. And once you get a unit right, because that's what we've done at Stoke, once we've got a unit right, everyone was pulling in the right direction. And that's how you survive.
So, I'll touch on the topic, like you said, that everyone, once you have a bad run, everyone starts playing for themselves or looking after their career. How much does a relegation affect a player's career? Because the likes of Jack Butland, who was one of the leading keepers in England, does not seem to get back into the Premier League. Does it affect a lot on a player's career? The relegation?
It depends on age and potential, I think. I mean, personally, obviously, when you get relegated, your wages go down 50%. So that affects you financially as a player. No player likes to have a relegation on their CV because it doesn't look good. No matter if you had a great season, you still don't want that on your CV. But if you're a young player coming through and you get relegated, you're destined to leave. Clubs will take you. You're a good asset. You'll be cheaper to get because you've just been relegated. So it depends on age as well. I think Jack Butland's still got a chance, but the thing was Jack Butland, he hasn't really performed as well as everyone thought he would have in the Championship. He's had not the greatest time, and people like Nick Pope are overtaking him. So that's what can happen to you.
Definitely, and I'll move on that. And speaking on the present Premier League season, do you have any team that you're following?
Yeah. I've always been a Manchester United supporter. I've loved Manchester United since I was a kid with Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Schmeichel, Konchesky, all those guys from the 90s. I've loved watching them. So I've always been Manchester United.
So what do you think of Ole this season? Is it a false dawn, or is he building something there?
Yeah, the thing with Ole is he's had a tough job. He's had to deal with a lot of stuff and dealing with a lot of garbage as well. That, over the years, they've tried the route of spending loads of money, and that hasn't worked because you just had mercenaries who just come for the money and left. You look at the Sanchez's, you look at the Di Maria's, they just came in, got their money and left. So what Ole's tried to do is trying to bring back Manchester United, where you've got people who want to be there. You bring it through the youth like Greenwood. You've got Martial performing better, Rashford, players that want to play. And that's where, and obviously Bruno Fernandes coming in. Brilliant signings, good signings. I think all the signings that have come in Manchester United have done really well because then it's building the team around them. When you look at Fernandes and Pogba's and Wan-Bissaka's, Maguire's, players that want to be there. So it's changing the whole thing. You've had Mourinho, didn't really work for obvious reasons. You had Van Gaal, didn't really work. So it's not just about big name managers. It's about a person who can do the job, because Van Gaal and Mourinho, they're world-class managers who have struggled. So Ole has done exceptionally well, especially to get top four.
Definitely. So another thing that might be sad for you is that looking at Liverpool win the league as a United fan, what do you think of Jurgen Klopp?
I think he's for me, he's probably the best manager in the world at the moment. For me, from what I've heard, the players I've spoken to, what he's done. He's got, even the ones who are not playing, they still feel part of it, and that is the best man management tool you could ever have. I think he's obviously a brilliant manager. Otherwise, he would have won the Premier League football-wise. But from what I've seen from him so far, he's probably he's slowly overtaken, because he knows he's very new age. He's not old school at all. He's very new age. He knows what players respect. He knows what players like. If a player's not in his plans, he will tell them. He won't drag them along and make them go and train with the kids and make them feel small. He would obviously just talk to you. You're not in my plans. I want to try and move you on. And the players can respect that. But when you disrespect grown men with families and children, that's when it gets messy.
So, do you think like Ole would realistically challenge for the Premier League title next season, or do you think we can see a Liverpool or a City dominance in the coming seasons?
I think for another year, I would say definitely. I think it will be Liverpool, Manchester City. I think Man United still have a lot of work to do. They're improving. I still think they got a lot of work defensively as well. Going forward, they're looking very, very solid. Midfield looks pretty secure, but at the back, they're a little bit sceptical at the minute. I think we need another centre-back to probably go alongside Maguire. I don't think, personally, Lindelof is gonna be the one to help them get into Champions League finals and things like that. I don't think so. No.
What about De Gea? He's come under a lot of criticism. Do you think they should replace him with Henderson?
Well, the problem with De Gea, his head's been turned since the Real Madrid interest. He's never really been the same. Obviously, he still had good games, put on great performances, but his mistakes have been highlighted, because when you're a goalkeeper, your mistakes do get highlighted. But I wouldn't pull the trigger yet. I would talk to him. I would see where his head is at. If he said to me in a private meeting, look, I really want a new challenge and get away to Real Madrid or wherever, then yeah, I'll look at another keeper. But I mean, only Ole would know where his head is at with De Gea. Nobody else would really know.
Definitely. And so, on that note, I'll move back to your career. And if you had to, it will be difficult for you, this question. If you had to choose one moment from your career, which will be the highlight of your career, which one would that be?
It would have to be, probably, I have to say two. It would probably be my Southend hat-trick in 2002, where I scored a hat-trick. That was unbelievable that night. And I'd have to say the promotion to the Premier League with Stoke. Nothing could really top that. That was unbelievable that night, especially the emotions and to finally make it after a season long in a very, very tough league.
Definitely. And one question just popped up in my mind, and I'll ask you, okay? And it's like, which one has more impact on a player, on you at least, the promotion with Stoke or the relegation with Burnley?
Impact. In what way? A good way or bad way?
Anyway, which one, maybe in any way does it affect you and your maybe career or even as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, the promotion at Stoke was brilliant. I mean, even when we got promotion, I played I don't know, a handful of games, 10, 15 games in the Premier League with Stoke. But when you get that money from getting promotion, the manager can already sign ready-made Premier League players, which he did with Robert Huth, Abdoulaye Faye, those sorts of guys who have played 200, 300 games already in the Premier League. So my chances become very limited after that. But what happens is, because you got promotion from the Championship, smaller teams like a Burnley or a Newcastle at that time were looking at me to go to them. So that was a good thing. I would always get a decent club after getting promotion. When you get relegated, for me at the time, I was early 30s, just got relegated. It didn't look good. I wasn't performing great. I wasn't very fit because I've just come from Stoke where I wasn't playing for ages. Got bought by Burnley in January. Gone into a team which were already losing, and I'm unfit at the same time. It wasn't a great time. So after that, I knew my career was winding down at that point anyway. My main focus was to get back to London, to be with my kids where they were down in London. I was up north, so I'm just talking about myself at my age at that time. But for a person like a 21-year-old who's doing very well, who gets relegated, it wouldn't affect them that much.
Definitely. And like, currently you are involved in the agency and all those stuff related to players, transfers and everything. So how does this pandemic affect the transfer going forward?
Well, I don't think it will last long. I mean, a lot of meetings have to be done by Zoom and Skype calls, etc. right now. We're still doing some face-to-face meetings, but obviously in terms of going to games, that's not happening right now, obviously. We're hoping by when the season starts in 22nd of August, we'll have more idea of when we can go into stadiums again. I mean, I'm sure they will do smaller crowds to start with to see how it goes, and then they'll eventually open up the gates. But for now, it's just meetings over Skype, Zoom, trying to arrange meetings for after the pandemic, and then we take it from there. But I don't think that football's going to be majorly affected because football's too much of a big business now. It's a business. It's not really a sport anymore. It's a business. There's too much money involved. It brings in too much money for the economy. That's why they brought the Premier League back. So we know that we'll get back on our feet soon enough.
Definitely. Imagine I'm running a show in Nepal about Premier League, so it is a big business.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. It's just one of the biggest businesses in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like, we are coming to the end of the interview, and like, since you have so much experience throughout the leagues in England, and if you had to give a piece of advice to a young player starting out, what advice would you give that player?
Just to work hard, work on your weaknesses as well. If you're training, just work on your weaknesses every day. Don't just jump in your car and go home. You have to really, really just try and nullify and just work on what you're not good at. And you have to keep working. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to, have good times, bad times. You just got to keep going. Got to keep going and try and enjoy yourself. It's hard. It's a hard game. It's a brutal game, but you just have to just knuckle down and work hard.
So, like on that note, I'll ask you one final question, okay? And this is quite controversial. For many, it's difficult. I don't know how it will be for you. If you had to choose one of the two players, whom would you choose, Ronaldo or Messi?
I had this discussion the other day actually with a person. I would have to say Ronaldo. The only reason why is because he's done it in every league. He's done it in the Premier League, Spanish League, Italian League, and he's done it for his country. And he to go to a different teams and perform like that is unbelievable. Obviously, Messi's been at Barcelona for his whole life. Well, obviously, brilliant player, unbelievable player. But he's been surrounded by unbelievable players, like Iniestas, Xavis, all those players as well. Portugal, Ronaldo, made his team win the Euros. And he's not surrounded by brilliant players throughout the team. Messi's never really done it for Argentina, even with good players around him. I would like to see Messi tested in a different league. Even though he scored goals in the Champions League against English teams, I would like to see him in the Premier League with a totally different atmosphere, totally different lifestyle, because Ronaldo's had to adapt. Messi's never really had to adapt. So that's my version.
So definitely, I have a follow-up question which just popped up, and it's like, do you think Messi could do it on a cold Monday night at Stoke?
Never. Never.
So okay, like you are an insider, so you would know how did this phrase come out?
Oh, because it's thing is at Stoke, the stadium, it's open. Most stadiums now, it's all secluded and cut off. But if you look at Stoke, in the corners, there's a big gap in all four sides. And when it's winter, the wind just rushes through the stadium. And any team coming to that stadium do not want to be there. It can be the most horrible place in the world to be, because it's just it can be an awful place for an away team to come. So yeah, we didn't mind. We didn't mind it because it gave us the advantage. The other team didn't want to be there. They couldn't wait for the final whistle. But yeah, especially up north where it's colder compared to London where I am, the wind just rushes through the stadium and it gets really windy. And no team enjoyed it. So that's why we got that phrase.
So definitely on that note, Leon, thank you so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best for future endeavors and best of luck with whatever deals you have to do, and hope you can broker some amazing deals, and hope we can talk again soon. Take care, stay safe, bye.
You too, mate. Take care. Bye-bye.